The European Commission spokesman has no doubts about the Migration Pact.
The pact will enter into application mid-2026. There is no doubt about that. The Commission is in close contact with all Member States. If a Member State risks delaying or even undermining the implementation of the pact, the Commission will need to take the necessary measures.
This is further confirmation that those campaign assurances by Trzaskowski and Tusk, no migrants will be relocated to Poland, we will not pay for anything, we will not have to accept any migrants, were plain lies. One could maliciously say that this is Tusk's first concrete promise, but if anyone believed him, they will be paying for it today, because not only will the Migration Pact come into force, but Tusk is preparing for its introduction by lying, because he understands that this is the European law that his group has prepared, that his group has pushed through, and that he will have to implement. The issue for the Civic Coalition is extremely uncomfortable and dangerous from a campaign point of view. Admitting that Poland will accept thousands of illegal migrants or pay for them will spell disaster for Trzaskowski. Probably that's why there was such a reaction to questions about the words of the European Commission spokesman. I don't know of such a statement, but this is his latest statement. And how can I trust you? And maybe you are trusting this statement. I'll have to check it out myself. Are you suggesting that the European Commission spokesman would lie? I'm saying that you might be twisting his statement. When will we have in writing that Prime Minister Donald Tusk is resigning from this pact? We keep hearing various contradictory versions. Good day to you, sir. Thank you very much. There is no such document, and probably there will be no document. There is also no mention in the provisions of the Migration Pact that Poland will be excluded from the system of forced admission of illegal migrants. Poland should present to the European Commission a strategy for the implementation of the Migration Pact by June, and so far, no such document exists. Moreover, what is interesting is that the European Commission, knowing that there is an election campaign going on in Poland right now, for the time being turns a blind eye to the fact that Poland is not fulfilling these formalities related to the implementation of the Migration Pact. And it won't help here to argue that, after all, we took in millions of war refugees from Ukraine. That is to say, straightforwardly, Poland will either accept migrants or pay, even more than the €20,000 per illegal migrant not accepted. So, please answer me directly whether Poland may be exempted from the Migration Pact, yes or no.
It's our common migration pact. It is very important that all 27 member states participated in this pact. I said before that different member states have slightly different challenges when it comes to migration, but it is very important that we all work together in this pact.
Spinning reality by the December 13th ruling coalition will not help. We will not accept any. Absolutely, they will not stay in Poland. The Migration Pact will not be implemented in any way, because all these words are refuted by documents, including a written response from the EU Migration Commissioner. According to European law, there is no legal possibility to exempt Poland from implementing any parts of the pact. The first relocations of migrants may take place this year, because there are rumours that in the autumn of this year the first migrants will be sent back to Poland. With the rest, we also see what the German side is doing, taking back migrants to the Polish side. Austria, Italy, the Czech Republic and the Netherlands can stand up to Berlin. The government in Warsaw? No. Donald Tusk is conducting a very poor policy towards Germany by not introducing at least asymmetrical border control on the border with Germany, which we and the opposition demand. And I think that most Poles would like Polish services to control who enters Poland from Germany. And we can already see examples of such building facilities for new migrants. There are about 49 centres for the integration of foreigners in 49 provincial cities. Well, after all, this was something which the President of the European Commission and Berlin supported, that the right people for them take over the government in Poland. And in this case, hope is not the mother of fools.
Today, the eyes of the world were on Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, where the U.S. and Ukrainian delegations met. Sitting at the table on one side were Secretary of State Marco Rubio and National Security Advisor Michael Waltz. And on the Ukrainian side, the President's advisor and Ukraine's heads of diplomacy and national defense. At stake in these talks is a ceasefire in Ukraine and the lives of civilians under attack by Putin's army. It is a success that both sides, the American side and the Ukrainian side, sat down for any kind of talks after such a short period of time. I think the next stage will be when Russia and Ukraine sit down at the same table. After 4 hours of negotiations, a break. Journalists tried to ask about the ongoing talks.
Secretary Rubio, how was the meeting?
Sir, how was the meeting?
Did it go well? Mr. Waltz?
Despite the protracted negotiations, comments from both sides were somewhat hopeful. Work in progress, wrote an aide to the Ukrainian president. Everything is on track, assured the representatives of the American delegation.
Holding these talks, I think it's a great place. It was a great place to meet Putin and meet a Russian team. And I would say that this is a great place now to have this Ukrainian discussion. So I'm very excited about those talks in Riyadh.
An important part of the agreement is American access to Ukrainian rare earth minerals, which Washington, D.C. sees as compensation for the aid already provided to Kyiv. The American presence in these areas would in itself be a guarantee of security, as Moscow would not dare lift a finger against such vital U.S. economic assets.
I think eventually, look, we have to have peace. And I'm doing this. Money is one thing. We're going to lose. We spent $350 billion on this. But the big thing, human life. Thousands of people this week, thousands of young soldiers died this week.
All this is after the fiasco in the Oval Office, when Volodymyr Zelensky took an aggressive tone and squandered that opportunity for peace.
You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
you
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment,
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about
If you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me.
equipment,
You invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
The Ukrainians came to the talks in Jeddah, knowing full well that only Donald Trump can stop the criminal Russian regime.
Jest to wyraźny postęp.
There is clear progress, especially after that unpleasant meeting in the Oval Office. The Ukrainians have understood that they can't push Trump to the wall and that they can't overplay their hand when it comes to their own negotiating strategy. Even before the talks began, Ukraine sent a strong signal to Moscow. The biggest drone attack on the Russian capital since the start of the war forced the Kremlin to close 2 airports. Fires also damaged many homes and killed 3 people. This is in response to the latest crime committed by the Russians, the attack on Ukrainian civilians in Donbass. Kyiv's ceasefire talks with Moscow will be difficult, but with Washington's support, a long-awaited peace arrangement is possible.
The favourite with no chance of winning. When he won last year, the election was cancelled, and there are attempts to eliminate him from subsequent ones. Support for Georgescu continues to grow, and the Romanian streets are seething. This is not democracy, this is some kind of nonsense. What is happening now in Romania has nothing to do with democracy. If he really isn't allowed to run, it means that we really don't have democracy anymore, and there is nothing to look for here. A few months ago, Georgescu unexpectedly won the first round of the presidential election in Romania. But then, the election was annulled by the Romanian Constitutional Court, and Georgescu was accused of fraud and Russian influence. Evidence, to this day, is yet to be provided. The action against him was, however, openly supported by Brussels Eurocrats.
I think everybody's tired, because this is like a never-ending telenovela in continuous mode since November, December, and we have to close this by mid-May and resume. I wouldn't necessarily say normalcy, because our country has changed quite a lot in the past 1.5 years of so many elections, but at least resume some sense of planning, some sense of public policies, government, and we have a lot of catching up in terms of image and influence abroad.
The political chaos was compounded by the Central Electoral Office's decision on Sunday to exclude Georgescu from the presidential rerun election scheduled for May. Riots broke out in the streets of Bucharest. This decision is a blatant violation of the Constitution, which shows that it has no meaning at all. that you can do anything to anyone with any piece of paper. The future does not look bright, and not just for Romania, but for the whole of Europe and beyond. The unstable situation in Romania is being highlighted by the new White House administration. The United States is watching the events in the country with concern, and Vice President J.D. Vance has pointed to Romania as one example of the European Union moving away from democratic values.
You do not have shared values if you're jailing people for saying we should close down our border. You don't have shared values if you cancel elections because you don't like the result, and that happened in Romania. You do not have shared values if you're so afraid of your own people that you silence them and shut them up. So let's have shared values. Let's defend democracy. Let's have free expression, not just in the United States, but all over the Western world. That is the path to strong alliances in Europe.
According to observers, a similar scenario to the one in Romania, the annulment of the elections and the exclusion of one of the candidates, is possible in other EU countries, including Poland. What we are observing today in Romania is a very dangerous situation, because we can see that through manual political steering, the rules of democracy are disturbed, and this can happen in any country. And in view of the elections in Poland, it is a situation that gives a lot of food for thought, because looking at the actions of some politicians of the current pro-European ruling coalition, we cannot exclude a similar situation taking place in Poland. In last year's annulled elections in Romania, Georgescu won more than 20% of the vote. Now, more than 30% would like to vote for him. He is leading the pre-election polls.
Lithium, gold, and rare earth minerals are key raw materials for technological progress, used to produce electronics, battery cells, and integrated circuits. Whoever has unlimited access to them has the key to dominating the world market. It's no surprise, then, that wherever there are mines, there are influential investors looking to take them over. For more than 2 decades, one of the most crowded continents in this regard has been Africa. Here, the interests of businessmen, politicians, and local warlords clash. Everyone wants their share of the market. 2 models prevail: cooperation or armed takeover. 2 countries, China and Russia, have specialized in both.
Lithium is the mineral.
Lithium is the mineral of the present and the future. Hence, its enrichment and extraction will cement our country's position as an emerging and competitive player in the global lithium value chain around the world. Zimbabwe has become a haven for China. The $300 million invested in the lithium mine will pay for itself in less than a decade. In return, investments in road construction, education, and healthcare. First, we don't interfere in Africa's internal politics. We sincerely help Africa and never put any political conditions. Second, cooperation closely matches Africa's development needs. However, China is not concerned with profit, but with sheer influence and the creation of dependency networks. Moscow, on the other hand, is pursuing a policy of force by filling in the gaps where the Europeans were present just a few years ago. Gold and diamond mines are overseen by mercenaries, and local militant groups are given weapons in exchange for profits. Europe's influence is declining in Africa at an alarming rate. More countries are coming out openly against Paris, London, or the old continent in general. Chad, Senegal are preparing to say goodbye to the French. We will fight against France. We don't want France anymore, neither in the security sector nor in any other sector. But after French soldiers' bases and influence, there is no void. The Russians are coming in, often having been officially invited in advance, and with a specific expansion plan. I would like to invite leading entrepreneurs in Russia to cooperate with Senegalese entrepreneurs to invest in Senegal. Senegal is a pleasant country, a democratic country that offers various opportunities. To make matters worse for Russia, influence in such countries can also be a form of tool to put pressure on Europe. It's all about crises, mainly migration crises, which the Kremlin can steer as it pleases by creating and fueling conflicts between African nations.